Hey guys, AJ with Relentless Racing. Welcome back to the channel. So everyone talks about the pre-facelift models and how they consume oil and the motor ends up blowing up. But what everyone never talks about is, has the car ever been hit? Why is it important? Because if it's ever been hit, the car won't align properly. The whole chassis gets bent and the car may possibly drive crooked down the street. Instead of driving straight down the street, it'll drive crooked. So how do we look for this? You have to actually remove the bumpers to see the frame rails and see if the structural bumper and the end caps have been damaged. Let's take a look at the rear. What do you really need to look for if it's been hit? So this is the frame rail and this is an end cap right here. If you notice, that's what this guy attaches to. If you look inside there, there's three 14mm nuts that hang on to that thing. Now this side's never been hit. So look at that thing, the color of it. It also has the VIN right there. When these have been replaced, they'll typically be black and they'll have a little sticker over here that reads Toyota R dot right in there. Now look, this thing's been hit, right? Now look at this end cap. See right here? The end cap's damaged, but that can be replaced. So typically a body shop will straighten this thing out and then they'll replace this end cap, weld it on there, and then coat it all up and make sure it doesn't rust. But the key is, the only way you can really see this is if you pull off the bumper. So you need to do the same thing for the front. The front has these exact same things too. So if you were to remove that rear bumper right there, you'd find this guy right here. This is the end cap that's in there. You could see this guy right here. That is the big thread for that tow hook right there. And then here are the three little bolts. And then this is the exact same partner for the left and on the right. So on the right, it just flips over like that. So same part number. And they call it a bracket subassembly for the rear. But that's 58305 17011. And that's it right there. But that's what it looks like. That's the end cap. And then obviously this rear bumper is still available. I'll pull the part number for you guys. So now we've covered the rear, we need to mention that once the body shop takes your vehicle in, they will put the vehicle on a frame jig and review the dimensions to make sure the body and the chassis are straight. Now look at this piece. This end cap has been totally been re-welded on. They spot welded it, and notice that they did a really nice job of just priming this. I typically don't have them paint it the same color because no one ever sees it, and I'm not really concerned about it. As long as it doesn't rust, that's really all I care about. So they reshaped all this, and look, it has the new end cap on here, and they put it on the frame machine and just made sure these rails are straight. And this one was not affected. You can kind of see that this thing, and look at the shape. That's the factory one. Looks pretty good, right? And then again, here's the one that was fixed. And how much does this fix cost? It depends on the body shop. So, and obviously if you paint this thing yellow, it gets even worse, or body match color, whatever you want, color you want to do it. But I just have them make sure that they put some sort of primer or whatever on there so that way it doesn't rust. But this could cost you anywhere from $500 to $1,000. And I'm thinking maybe it's 500 bucks a corner or something like that. And so there's something that's just like this on the front as well. The front end cap is different than this one. This end cap and that end cap are the exact same part number. On the front, they have separate part numbers. So, and the front isn't perfectly straight like this. Well, this one's bent a little bit, but on the front, it's bent even more. So just be aware of that. And sometimes you could see this thing from underneath the bumper. Like if you crawl underneath the vehicle on my special Filipino tool, you could see this, but the diaper has to be off. On the front, it's much harder to see, so you really should take off the cosmetic bumpers and take a look at the structural bumper. And you could tell if it's been hit too, and if it's been replaced. This will read like Toyota R dot, which means that it's a service part. I stole this particular piece. Well, I didn't steal it. I bought it from another member on the forum. So anyhow, that's what you guys need to take a look at, is check if this thing's been hit, because again, if this frame rail and that frame rail are messed up, chances are the chassis is bent and it won't align properly. Now let's talk about the front. We'll have to remove the front bumper cover and review the frame rails and check out the end caps of the frame rails. And so let's get started. Here's a close-up of that sticker that reads Toyota R dot. Kind of see it underneath there. And that means that this piece was replaced. So they went to the dealer and they bought another one of these things. But let's look at the end caps. Now, this is the frame rail right here, and here's the end cap. And you can still buy this end cap. It looks like the end cap was not damaged if it were hit. And it doesn't look like it was repaired. So this end cap looks good too. Let's look on the side right here. That's what it looks like. That looks pretty good. And all that holds this thing on is, I think those are 12 or 14 millimeter nuts on there. And then, I'm not so sure if you could read that part number. It's not there really, but okay. And then let's look at this end cap. That end cap looks good. Spacing looks good. And this thing is kind of an illusion, an optical illusion, because since the front bumper, the structural bumper, has a nice radius in it, the end caps have that same radius. So you have to look at it and make sure that everything's okay with that thing. It should stick out like a sore thumb though if something's wrong. But that's really what you're looking for when you buy an MRS. You have to be careful, pull off the bumpers if you can, and check this thing out, because this could be an expensive ordeal. Maybe $1,000 in the rear, $1,000 in the front. I don't know. You'll have to check with your local area. So anyhow, that's what I think you guys really need to know before you purchase an MRS. I hope you guys found this video helpful. If you want to know how to remove the rear and front bumper covers in detail, check out the next chapter. So what's next for Project Yellow? Well, I really want to focus on getting her back on the road. Recall, she gets stuck in gear. So do you guys think it's the transmission or it's the clutch? Let me know what you guys think in the comments. This is AJ with Relentless Racing. Stay relentless, and I'll see you on the track. So let's remove the taillights first. There is 10 millimeter and 10 millimeter right here. Now, when you take this thing off, it needs to come off this way. And the reason why, there's a little clip on this side. So kind of grab it like this, give it a little wiggle, and let her out. And here's the little clip I was talking about. Oftentimes, people will break this thing, so be careful. It slips into this little white little connector right here. And then we got to release this connector. The connector is tough to handle sometimes. Let me get a close-up of this and I'll show you guys what it looks like. So originally the light's like this, and the part that you need to push on the connector right here is actually on the bottom side. So you kind of have to flip it over like this so you can kind of see the bottom side. So here you can see you need to push this guy right here. You need to push this white section right there. And so I use this tool and I push on it just like this. Give it a little squeeze here, and then you're gonna have to pop the thing off. Now that we have the tail light out, it exposes two 10 millimeter bolts right in here. So get these guys. Next, this section of the bumper is actually held on with a 10 millimeter bolt that's underneath here. So if you reach under here, you could feel it. Let's see if we can get it without any looking. I don't know if we're gonna, oh, there it is. There it is right there. This one's typically a silver one that you find that's underneath here. Okay, right under here there's a little plastic clip that hangs onto this section. And all you do is just, you could release it and you can see the plastic clip right there. So it just kind of goes on like that, and then it just pops off. There's a little hole right in here, and it fits into this plastic clip and it locks it in. And once this is bolted, thing is locked in. So we already did this taillight. This taillight is the exact same thing. And then there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plastic clips across the top. So to get the plastic clips across the top, I use this tool. You can get this from Matco or from China Freight or Amazon, wherever they have them. So all you got to do is just grab the clip like this, release the top of it, and you can yank it up with this thing, or you can use a panel popper. You can get these at Harbor Freight, Amazon, Snap-on. This is a Snap-on piece, and you just stick it underneath here and kind of give it a good pop, and then it'll pop out. Here's what it looks like. And you could get these at the dealer, but I don't like buying these at the dealer because they're way too expensive. You can buy a bunch of these, maybe like 50 or 100 of them for like $5 to $8 off of eBay. So you saw a couple of these things break, but again, if they're so cheap, no big deal. They're consumable. Remember, that way. This one's easier to see. You can see the connector right there. Right in here, there's typically a 10 millimeter here and a 10 millimeter right over here, and that's for your license plate, so take those guys off. Okay guys, we're about to go underneath the vehicle because I got to show you some stuff that you got to detach from underneath. But before we get started, I want you to know this is a special Filipino tool. It is a piece of cardboard, and I'm going to share with you a little story about my dad. Back in the day when I was younger, we used to be driving in my dad's truck, and my dad would see this ginormous piece of cardboard and he would get so excited. And I never could figure out why. Well, he said, go pick up that piece of cardboard, and then we would put it in the side of the garage and just kind of hang it up against the wall right there. And then whenever we had to work on a car, we'd break out one of these pieces of cardboard. To this day, I still see big pieces of cardboard and I think, yeah, that's gonna be a good piece underneath the car. So anyway, if you're a Filipino, you understand. If you don't, get on the bandwagon. Okay, let's go underneath the car here and take a look. Alrighty, so let's get some light. This is the bumper. If you could kind of see right there, the black thing is the structural bumper. And you could see that there are some clips that are right there. These are the same plastic clips that are on the top. There's one, there's two right there. That's the second one. And then there's a third one way over there. Do you see it? The third one? I typically don't put those on, but you should put them on. And in fact, when I put this one on, I left the clip on. You see the little plastic clip underneath right there? I left that one on, but we'll pull that off in a second. But underneath here, so look, here's the rear tire. This is the right rear tire. There are two 10 millimeter guys right here. One, and then two. To pull these things off, it's pretty simple. Obviously, just take a 10 millimeter and get those things off. But to pull them off, there's a little plastic clip on them. I'll show you. Hang on. So to get this plastic clip off, you kind of pull this end up right here. Up, and you slip it off. And then it's off. And then same thing here, like that. Oh, there's a little piece of plastic that fell out of there. And then you just do that on the other side too. And that's all that holds that thing on. Here's the other two on the driver's side. Okay, so just pull those off. It's the exact same thing. So now we got all the pieces off of the bottom. The only thing that's really holding this thing on are just friction right now, but there are a couple of electrical connections, and those are the lights for the license plate that we need to disconnect. Underneath here are the electrical connectors. So you want to disconnect these guys and then just clamp there, and then there's one right here. There's two of them. Just disconnect them, and look, there's the bumper coming off. The electrical part of the license plate bulbs or lights is usually attached to this structural bumper here. So you have these little connectors, and these guys are typically put in to these holes right here, and they snap right in. I'm not going to snap these things in, but to pop them out, you just use a panel popper to pop them out. Be careful so you don't break these little tabs on them. All right. So there's three of those. 1, 2, 3, and there's another piece that attaches to. I believe it's. Yeah, there's two plastic pieces that attach to this guy that I broke off. But I'll probably put it back on and snap them back in, but they go in the exact same way that these guys go. So if you ever want to take that off, that's how you pop it off. And obviously you have to release this guy this guy. Those are both 10 millimeter. And then there are 14 millimeter nuts within these guys. There's 3 of them right in there. So 1, 2, 3, and that's on both sides. There's one over here as well. Oh, and you got to release these guys too. Those are those little arms right there that you got to release to get that thing out. Okay, so moving the front bumper cover is pretty simple. You've got 10 millimeter bolts up here. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then over here, and right underneath here, if you pull this over, you can kind of see a 10 millimeter right here, and that'll separate the bumper. Also, once you pull off the bumper, you have to disconnect the electrical for the side markers. And that same bolt is over on this side as well. This is the right side. And then if you pull this thing aside right here, you can kind of see the 10 millimeter bolt right there. And then we have some bolts underneath. Let's take a look. This is the right front tire, and this is the right front part of the car. So 10 millimeter here, 10 millimeter here. And then you've got one right here, one right in the center. And I cut the view, but this is the center again. There's one right here, another 10 millimeter here, and then there's one on this far corner over here. And these are all 10 millimeters.